Welcome back to pixelprojectradio, the video game discussions podcast where we do deep dives and analyze all of our favorite games and some of yours too. Introduce self. Well, that's me. I'm Rick, and today we're starting playthrough 1, route 1, maybe, of Paranormasight, The 7 Mysteries of Hanjo, a game that is part visual novel, part adventure game, part mystery thriller, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. As always, up front, I've got to thank the patrons. The patrons are a wonderful group of folks that believe in the show and want to support the show to keep seeing more work come out on this end. And I can't thank them enough. If you want to be like these fine folks, if you appreciate the show and want to show your support, you can head on over to patreon.com/pixelprojectradio. You can find all about what's going on over there. Hear this month's episode about Mortal Kombat 1995, that amazing, cheesy action movie. And, you know, you can support your favorite indie creator, which is me. Maybe it's not, though. That's fine, too. I think I used that joke on the last episode. I gotta stop. I've got a guest with me, first timer on the show, and the person that actually convinced me to play this game at first. We've got Michael from the Bits of Time podcast. Michael, thanks for joining me, man.
Of course. I forgot. I did introduce this game to you, so I'm so excited to talk about it, because I don't really know anybody else that's played it.
Well, you sort of introduced it to me. I heard about this first on Triple Click from Kirk Hamilton, another saxophonist too. So, like, Kirk, if you're listening to this, like I'm sure you are, hit me up, man. Come on to my show. It'll be great for me, and probably won't even be a blip on the radar for Triple Click. But I heard Kirk singing the praises of this game, and then I appeared on your show talking about visual novels, and this was one of your favorites that you had brought up and mentioned. And that kind of gave me the kick in the rear to start this. It had been sitting in my Steam library for a while. I knew that I wanted to get to it, wasn't quite sure when, and I did, and now here we are. That's kind of my history with this. What about you? Did you play this upon release?
I did. I can't remember where I first saw it. I don't know if I was just browsing IGN or something. I can't really remember. What stuck out to me is it was published by Square Enix. I was like, Square Enix is making a visual novel? So that immediately kind of hooked me, and then I looked at kind of the route and the style. The style of the game is kind of what jumped out for me. And yeah, I finished it right on release.
Yeah, this is a very stylistic visual novel. It is a stylized experience. You know, when we say stylized visual novel, I think a lot of folks are going to immediately think of Danganronpa. Yeah. And it's not quite like that. That's more of like a pop horror art aesthetic. This is much closer, appropriately enough, to something like The World Ends With You, if you've ever played those games. It has a kind of noir comic book tinged feel, but also a little bit anime. It's cool. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. As we mentioned, Paranormasight, this is primarily a visual novel, but it's got some mystery thriller DNA, it's got some adventure game DNA in it. Came out in 2023 in March on the PC and the Switch. Full credits, you can find them on IMDb, on the wiki, or you can beat the game. Of note, developed by Xeen, that's Xeen, published, as you said, Michael, by Square Enix. Directors Takanori Ishiyama and Yoshihito Okuno. Ishiyama was also the writer, has a writing credit. This was produced by Kazuhiro Kawakami and Kazuma Oshu. Art by Gen Kobayashi and Junko Sumimizu. Composer Hidenori Iwasaki. This is, broad thoughts up front. I wanted to like this a lot more than I actually did. I think I'm a lot cooler on this than you are, Michael. I liked it okay. It tries to do some tricks that I think they wanted it to be more interesting than it ended up being, and they really believed in it, and they took some swings, but it just did not land at all for me in some areas. I like the game quite fine. I had a good time going through it from top to bottom. It's a pretty breezy experience. It's not too long. I want to say somewhere between like 10 and 15 hours maybe. It's not egregious. But this wasn't the mind-blowing experience that some of its more dedicated fans convinced me it might be. Had a good time, did not blow me away.
Now that's going to be interesting to talk about. I think the one thing when I come into visual novels, I generally want to be blown away by like the twist and whatever. I don't think this game has an amazing story. I think it just has really good moments. And I feel like it's just it's a lot different than other visual novels I've played. I think it was more of a refreshing game versus like the best game you're ever going to play if you're going to read a visual novel.
That's a good point about the moments. It really does live on the moments that it wants to get to, and the in-between, the intermediary, not so much. That is definitely a choice that writers can make whenever they're crafting a story. I think it works. We'll talk about it whenever we get farther in. Up front, first of all, if you're a new listener, welcome. Glad that you're here. How this show usually works, we give our overarching thoughts up top in the preamble, the preface talk. We're going to talk about the development, history. We'll talk about the visuals, music, things like that. And then we'll get into the story. Before we get into the story, we won't give any spoilers to anything. Once we get to the story, spoilers full on. Now, I debated about how I wanted to do this, and here's where I landed. I really went back and forth with myself. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to talk through the opening prologue. There is a prologue chapter that you play through. We are going to talk through that like we always do on the show. After that, we are just going to talk about the story as a whole, and here's why. There are a total of, technically actually, if you count the prologue, 5 routes that we go through in this game. And just like the Quarry, it bounces back and forth a lot between the routes, between different perspectives. And that, for listeners that listened to the Quarry episode can remember back then, I really did not like how that turned out. I've been vocal about that. Bouncing back and forth between perspectives is perfectly fine whenever you're doing a work, but it's kind of anathema to how I like to do this podcast, or I should say to the effectiveness of how I like to do this podcast. It doesn't work so well. They should have consulted me. So to prevent the pacing from grinding to a halt with a bunch of and then, meanwhile, not to mention having to go back and say, okay, they learned this, which recontextualizes this way back here. We're just going to talk about that part as a whole. I really did go back and forth on that too, man, because like I get very self-conscious about how I make those decisions on the show. You know, part of me really just wants to do everything the same way, have total uniformity, so listeners know what they're getting every time they come here. On the other hand, I am not a product. You know, I am not a brand. I'm allowed to have some deviations based on my wants. I am a person. So if you are one of the small few that might get upset that we're not doing a beat by beat of the story, I'm sorry. I hope you understand why I'm choosing not to. But I think it'll still be fun to talk through this game, the experiences, analyze some writing, talk about some visuals and aesthetics. I think it'll still be a good time.
Oh, 100%. I feel like I agree with your deviations to your norm, because that's how I would talk about this game overall.
So let's talk a little bit about the development. I didn't take too much down here. This was developed by Square. It wasn't dropped with a ton of fanfare. They didn't promote this super heavily. You might be thinking, well, Square Enix, I mean, surely they have the budget for that. Surely they do, I'm sure. But this, like The Quiet Man, this was a game that was just not put on Front Street, not blared over the alarms. They didn't put out a bunch of promotional material saying, play this game. I did find an interview. There is an RPG site, rpgsite.net. They did an interview with Ishiyama, Iwasaki, Kobayashi, and Oshu. That site is garbage, hot garbage. It runs about as bad as the wiki fandom sites do. Have you ever browsed those?
In between, yes.
Yeah, man, they run real bad. They brick up a computer real quick. But I did take down some quotes that I wanted to sprinkle throughout here. I'll paste that link in the episode description. But this first one, there's a question directed to Ishiyama about his general inspirations toward Paranormasight, and I think that's going to give some insight into what this game is. So they asked, Mr. Ishiyama, what inspired you to create Paranormasight, The Seven Mysteries of Honjo? How did you arrive at the concept of making it a horror adventure title? Were there any significant challenges you faced early on when writing the script for it? And Ishiyama, again, the director and the writer, or at least the directing credit and the writing credit, said this. He says, quote, I was aware that this project would be subject to many restrictions from the early stages of planning, so decided that in order to create a high-quality title, it would be best for it to be an adventure game, given my experience with the genre. We went with horror because I thought it would be most suited for live streams and incorporated the Seven Mysteries of Hanjo from Sumida City, Tokyo as a subject, as I felt basing the project on existing folklore would make it more realistic. The first challenge in writing the script was thinking of how to incorporate big surprises that take advantage of the video game medium. End quote. So a couple of interesting things in here.
What do you think about the would be subject to many restrictions? Do you think that's because Square Enix as a whole would be like pushing back that we're not going to put this much money into a visual novel game? Is that what he's trying to get at?
You know, maybe. I mean, Square Enix lately has also just been the powerhouse of Final Fantasy VII and to a lesser degree 16 and to a lesser degree Kingdom Hearts. So I would imagine that's maybe where the restrictions would come from. Maybe it's also the marketability of a visual novel or the fact that it's going for a more mature, not necessarily graphic, but potentially graphic, horrific, and gory genre like horror. Maybe that's where he was coming from. He didn't elaborate on that very much in that interview.
Yeah, because at this time period, you know how you said they didn't put much fanfare out there and putting money towards marketing. I feel like Square Enix around this time did that with a lot of games.
Oh, yeah?
I think it was the Star Ocean game. It was, what is that real-time strategy game? Dealfield Chronicle. Like, they just threw everything out there right then. It's like, you gotta space them out a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot all about Dealfield Chronicle. Is that any good?
I own it, but haven't played it. I keep telling myself I'm going to, but one of these days.
Story of my life, man. I own it. I don't play it. That's one of the interesting things in that little snippet. Also, the fact that horror was a choice largely influenced by live streams I thought was very interesting. This is, I think, the first game that I've covered on this show where live streams were cited as an actual influence. And I don't know about you, but that would have scared me off of this game for a while. I find the stream bait category of games as being totally uninteresting and vapid and dumb. No, oh my God, no. This is not the first one. I think At Dead of Night was sort of made to be a stream game. That was an early episode on the show. It was one of the only games we've ever done that I absolutely hated playing. This game I did not hate playing, to be clear. And I don't think the live stream influence really stands out when you're playing through this. I wouldn't have even known that that was a thought had I not read this interview.
Yeah, I was going to concur with that because I don't know what in this game would be that unless you count some of the minimal jump scares. I really don't know what that line of thinking was when developing this game.
Yeah, you think of stream bait, you think of a live stream game, you think of a game that is made with the intent to be streamed. I mean, obviously Five Nights at Freddy's, if we're thinking horror games, that's the first thing you think of, right? And that's fun and exciting because you get to see other people's adrenaline get pumping and them get jump scared. That's how that genre lives and dies, right? Is the reactions of the streamers. This isn't really that game. It's not demanding reactions out of you, at least not in that way.
Yeah.
Plus, there is a lot of file reading in this game.
That's a good point. That doesn't seem like something that would be really conducive to live streaming. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't watch somebody live stream a visual novel. That's just me.
No, indeed. I mean, I used this word earlier. I don't know why this word is sticking in my brain today, but like this kind of almost seems like the anathema of streaming. It seems totally at odds, totally against the idea of what makes streaming fun. Like, I agree with you, man. I would not live stream that either. Disco Elysium, maybe, but even then, probably not. Well, partly because that's just a very intimate kind of game, IMO. But I'm with you. I don't like watching people live stream text-heavy games, partly because a lot of people don't. I don't want to watch people act if they can't do it. You know, it's either the enthusiasm's not there or the enthusiasm is there, but it's like, okay, buddy, relax. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm being rude or
facetious.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a curmudgeon. But you have to do a lot of file reading in this game if you want to engage with the lore. You can certainly go through this without reading the files. And, you know, to be fair, a lot of the files are like on Sumida City or on the history of that soap company, Hihaku Soaps, in here, that's not necessarily pertinent to your understanding of the story. It's just there for world building. But there is a lot of it. A significant amount of what this game is and its story lies in the files. And that's just not something I would want to watch on a live stream.
Yeah, same.
I did want to mention, too, I had said earlier that this game is kind of a hodgepodge of visual novel, adventure game, and mystery game. And I'd be curious to hear if you agree with this, Michael. My feelings on this is that it doesn't really commit to any one of these too strongly. Visual novel maybe at the most, but it doesn't try to be any one of these to any strong degree. And as such, for me, it kind of sits in this gray, soggy middle area where sometimes it doesn't know what it's trying to be. The examples that I give, and I don't know where in the notes I give this, but like it's a visual novel first and foremost, I think. But the problem is it doesn't want to commit to that. So the routes in this game, even though there are technically multiple endings, you are really on rails for most of this. You kind of cannot miss a lot of what this game has to offer. 95% of this game you cannot miss. There are no routes like you would expect in a visual novel, like a heroine route or whatever. None of that. The choices don't really matter. And the biggest one, if you get to a bad ending, there's this narrator character that we'll talk about. He comes up and just kind of says, "Oh, try it again, champ. You'll do it better this time." Right? The adventure thing, obviously it's point and click adventure. It does that a little bit. There are no puzzles really. The puzzles that are there are kind of weak. Mystery, there is a mystery. It starts to tumble all over itself and kind of crumble in onto itself as they try to make it more complex than I think the story and world can handle. And we can debate whether it's as effective as Danganronpa for things like characters and whatever. But my perception of this is it doesn't fully commit to anything. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's enjoyable, but it kind of, if we were to look at it as a visual novel, as a horror game, as a point and click adventure, it just doesn't rise to the top of any of those for me.
All right, so that was a lot. Let me
I'm
dissect that a little bit.
Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Let me dissect that a little bit. I would say I agree and slightly disagree. So definitely the point and click adventure. I think it's fun to kind of go around the environment and, scroll past. I played this on my Switch, so it was nice in portable mode. But I don't think it did anything in that aspect that would make me be like, oh yeah, this is a standout in the point and click adventure genre. I think there is a good blend of horror and visual novel. And I think when you talked about the route thing, how it's pretty easy to unlock, that's actually a positive in my head because I don't like being too tedious with things when trying to figure out, oh, I have to unlock this character's route. Let me do all this stuff.
Okay.
Rewind my save and whatever. So I actually kind of like that. Now that kind of goes in hand with me being a little bit more, what was the word you used? Breezy to get through. I think that combined is kind of nice. That's why it's kind of in my head almost a great introductory visual novel because it's not too complicated. There is a lot of different style of things going on. Whether it does it to the best or not, well, obviously
sure.
We know where you stand. I think that is the bonus of it, where it is a little bit shorter. You're going to get a lot of different things in one package, even if it doesn't do all those things excellently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to be clear, too. I don't think it's a con that it doesn't exceed in any of these categories. I don't think every game needs to be the best at what it's trying to do. But I think the indecision, it comes off to me as indecision, as a sort of, they weren't really sure. I have to be honest, the routes thing, I generally follow walkthroughs for visual novels anyway. So, it's kind of a moot point that I'm making this. But even still, it is pretty on rails. And to that end, I agree with you. I think this is a great introduction to what visual novels could be, or what visual novels are. And I mean, pairing this with something like Danganronpa, Those two are both very, very excellent beginner visual novels, I think, especially if you're looking for something that's a little grittier, a little more horror tinged.
Interesting. I'm torn about This is not a Danganronpa podcast, but is that a good introductory visual novel? I wonder.
I think so.
Some of the concepts I think are maybe just a little too much for some people, but then again, that horror style mystery really does. It's a great starting point for most people. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
Let's talk a little bit about how this game plays in the hands. You played on Switch, I played on PC and my Legion Go, so I played a little handheld, a little mouse and keyboard. Visual novel first and foremost. There's a lot of reading. You are going to see a lot of character sprites that are changing every few lines to reflect emotion. There are routes. There are a total of 5 technically. There is a prologue, 3 main character routes, and 1 other character route that's unlocked later. We'll talk about those characters here in a little bit. Largely, I liked all the characters for the most part. I think it's a pretty likable cast.
Yeah.
The puzzles, they're a little weak, and this game does try to be meta in some of its aspects. Now, this was something that you had mentioned right away when we were talking about this on your show. You had mentioned the meta aspect right away. And to be fair, the meta aspect is right in the very beginning of this game, right in the opening.
Yes.
it does that for you head on. It does the trick where it's like, what's your name? And you write Rick. And then he said, oh, so your name is Bud Dink? Because Bud Dink is my name on Steam, and it's supposed to give you this big shock. Oh, what? He can read my computer files. Games like I think back to I'm Scared, like pre-Steam days. I'm Scared, like would read your computer files and put files on your desktop. The scariest thing in the early 2000s that could ever be done is the computer doing things to your computer, is the computer being alive. You don't want to mess with computer because computer is alive. You want to kill computer. That's kind of the point of these kinds of games. Not really, not in Paranormasight, but it starts off with that meta aspect. I'm really torn on whether or not I think this is fine or really unnecessary. I'm really torn, and we can't really talk about that without talking about the ending, so we're going to hold on that for a little bit. Just broad overview, does it work for you? I'm pretty sure I remember you saying that it really worked for you. Am I right?
Yeah, the initial one right there reminds me of like Metal Gear Solid Psycho Mantis, where he's just reading off your memory card stuff like that. I like those little moments. Now, that's not what I love about the kind of manipulation that you do in some of the puzzles. When I think about the game as a whole, it's more clever in some aspects. Now, when you're debating like actual puzzles, I played a lot of escape room style ones. It's nothing like that. But I think some of the things that this game does between the UI and the actual trying to get past certain checkpoints, roadblocks, is clever to me.
I wouldn't disagree with clever. Whenever it showed its full hand at the very end and it showed you the cards it was holding, cute was the word that I kept thinking of. Not in like a derogatory way, but like I'm thinking back to some of the tricks that it pulled throughout, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's cute. I like that. That's pretty nice. Those seemingly random moments that happened, they were thinking ahead. We'll talk about that when we get to the ending. We kind of can't talk about it without spoilers.
No.
There's another piece of the interview that I put in here. Ishiyama, again, he says this. He says, quote, "Actually, I'm not very good with horror myself." And he laughs. "I decided at the beginning that the horror element would be an added spice, and the story itself would hinge on it being a mystery in which players uncover secrets to reveal the mastermind behind it all." Now, I keep saying, I think I've said horror a few times. It kind of just slips off the tongue when you're talking about mysteries and thrillers, especially games like this. This game's really not scary. There are a few jump scares that piss me off, but like, it's not a horror game. It's tense, but it's not scary.
tense is the better word for it. There is a certain route and a certain scene in particular that freaked me out a little bit, but I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to these things. Outside of those couple of jump scares, I wouldn't consider this a horror. It's more like a thriller with some darker moments.
Yeah, totally. I would agree. And that's not a con. I think it works well. I think that them leaning into the mystery was a big boon to the story they were trying to tell. It made it exciting. It added a sense of excitement, especially considering 3 of your characters are detectives. 4, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, are detectives. A lot of detectives in this game. Who would have guessed in the mystery novel that there are
what?
4 detectives, 4 Sherlocks, count them, 4. We mentioned this isn't like other VNs. It's not route specific. There are diversions. There are sort of what if this happened scenarios in here, but no routes really. Those are more so like ending scenes or, we'll get there. One thing, and this kind of ties into the visuals too, one thing that makes this game stand out to me is it has a full 360-degree environment, which is markedly different than most visual novels. You can drag the mouse or use the right stick if you're playing on Switch or something. You can move all around in a full circle and see the full environment. And this is used several times in the story to progress the story and to get lore and solve puzzles. This was great. I loved this, specifically because, like, as we'll talk about in a second, the visuals are really, really nice. But I thought this added a level of immersion that I just, to be honest, wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and I think they use this cleverly in one scene where it was kind of a jump scare right at the very beginning.
Oh, sure.
So I like that aspect of it. When I said that this game doesn't feel like the point and click adventure part too much, or like doesn't dive in as far as I want it to, this aspect is awesome though.
Yeah.
Because it kind of immerses you in the entire world. And again, there's some pretty cool scenery that you're going to be going to.
Yes. Before we get into the scenery, do you want to talk about the puzzles a little bit and how this game sort of handles puzzles?
Yeah, why not? We can go that way.
So this game handles puzzles. There's no it's not Silent Hill. You're not going to read a poem about on the first day she was wed, and then it's like, oh, that's the wedding ring on the first finger. It's nothing like that. That's actually from Signalis, which is coming up on the show. It's nothing like that. It's more so you will be given a list of dialogue options, and to answer the question that's being asked of you, you have to check your files. That's one way it presents. Those are pretty low stakes because if you get them wrong, nothing really happens. At worst, they just say, no, it's not that, it's this, and then you move on. At best, this could be flip-flopped, I guess, depending on how you look at it. They might also just say, nope, try again. And then you just get to pick again, and it just keeps going until you get it right. And, in those cases, they might say, it took you this many times to get it right. How about that? And nothing happens.
Yeah, I wonder if that was brought on to be more accessible. And because they're trying to do so many genres, even though they wanted to spice it up with the horror elements, I wonder if this was almost like an afterthought, but not really. I don't know. These type of puzzles are strange. I like it when it's a roadblock and you have to do something in the menus in a different way. I don't want to spoil anything.
No, we're right there. We might as well talk about that. And for what it's worth, I kind of think we're both in agreement on this. They wanted to focus on the story that they were trying to tell, the detective mystery. And I think adding too many puzzles that real stumpers of a puzzle, real head scratchers, that would have killed the pacing in a way that they probably didn't want to do.
Yeah.
But no, you mentioned the sort of meta puzzles that involve going into menus and stuff. Why don't you take the lead on that? Tell us all about it.
So basically, in this world, there are people that are cursed, and they'll be doing different powers against you. So these people are going around killing people. It's not a spoiler. We'll get into the mystery of it all. But what's cool about it is, for example, this one person might use something that when it creates a sound, it will kill you as the player. So what you can do is go into the menu and mute that specific character, and now no longer that power hurts you. And I think this game does that enough throughout the experience that I'm like, oh, this is clever. Oh, that's clever. Trying to get past the roadblocks and actually using the menu, I thought was such a clever idea.
It is. It's very neat. You had mentioned that that there are a handful of folks in this world that are cursed. That's right. It's kind of a Saturday morning Power Rangers or Pokemon kind of deal, where it's like, I've got this curse, and this is what this curse does. Well, I've got this curse, and this is weak to this. And my curse is better, because and there's like 9 of them. Oh, yeah, by the way, this pulls some Kingdom Hearts bullshit. Organization 13 has 14 members. It's the 7 Mysteries of Hanjo. There are actually 9 or 13 of them. So,
yep.
Like, okay, sure. Everybody in the game comments on it, too. They're like, that's weird, huh? Anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, dog, you're writing the game. Why did you do it that way? I don't know. 7 Mysteries just rolls off the tongue real nice. I don't know, 9 Mysteries.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's not as good.
9 Mysteries. Yeah, it's close.
Oh, well, they should have consulted you. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently.
That one in particular that you're mentioning, there's one curse where if you hear the sound of whatever in your head, that's how the curse gets you, and you're dead. And what's interesting is you can go into your menu at any time into the settings, and you can see that there's a slider for voice volume. And you can say to yourself, wait a second, this game doesn't have any voice acting. Why is this here? And you can do that from the very beginning.
Dude, I don't know what... I never even did the connection to that.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's clever. It's a clever little thing. And I like that. I thought that was really cool. And what's really neat about it is it ties into an ending twist where your character doesn't know what's going on. They're just like, I don't understand this. I can't focus on it right now, though, because there's a murder going on, whatever. That was neat. There's another way they do this, too, where you will be going all the way through and you end up dying. Too bad, so sad. And you get kicked back to the narrator. We're going to talk about him soon. And he says, oh, so bad. Why don't you tell the character to do this? Now you know how that curse works. Is there anything in your inventory that you might want to get rid of? And he gives you sort of hints. And then you can go into the inventory whenever the appropriate time comes, ditch the item that would trigger the curse. The character on screen is like, why do I have this thought to throw this away? Oh, well. And then you just do it. And that's how you progress through that puzzle. Pretty cool. I do like that.
It works for me a lot. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting too, I feel like, for me. When I think back on this game, that's what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, some of them are really nice. It doesn't do it as often as I wish it. Well, actually, now that I say it out loud, I feel like if they did it more, it might become a little too self-insistent.
Yep.
And it might get really stale. I feel like the diminishing returns on this would be quite high. So maybe they did strike the perfect balance, actually.
Yeah, you have to be reserved in something that's that cool. Otherwise, well, to me, that's that cool. Otherwise, it overstays its welcome really quickly.
Yeah, he mentioned that the horror is a spice. This, too, is like a spice, and I'm not the person to ask. I douse my shit in hot sauce like crazy. I'm not a spice moderator. I'm a full-fledged dump the bottle kind of guy.
Spicy.
Caliente. We mentioned the visuals. We got to talk visuals. This game is really, it has a very unique style. It's really terrific. What I love about the art direction here is that they have this thick comic book style outlining to characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was the standout thing. It almost like emboldens them as a character. What a cool, there's just not games that look like this.
Yeah. The characters themselves, I mean, they don't look like newspaper comics, but they have the outlinings of like newspaper comics. Very bold, dark lines to outline their figure. And this contrasts with the backgrounds that are a little bit more mellow, a little brushed, a little more opaque. Not quite watercolors like you would see in like Grease, for example. another game that we just talked about. But it seems like, if the characters were drawn with pens and markers, the backgrounds were done with like brushes, paint and computer, whatever, paint and pencil rather than just like marker and pen. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
Yeah, like the backgrounds are more muted and the characters are standing out because of the thick lines outlining them. And I feel like that makes it very retro feeling. I know they're going for a time period piece as well, so that fit in conjunction.
Yeah. It is a retro piece, and to that end, this takes place in the 80s, so the styles are pretty reminiscent. Well, I don't know. It seems like it's reminiscent to me. You've got your standard salarymen, you've got your jean jacket guy, you've got a delinquent girl. Even actually, one of the guys even has like a pompadour that was like US 50s, Japanese 80s kind of hairstyle. It's really nice. There's also, it gives you this CRT filter. This is presented to you as if it were a play or a television drama taking place on this CRT television set, which the narrator at the very beginning says, like, this is a television. They used to be big and bulky like this. Can you imagine? And I was like, can you imagine? Who are you talking to?
I have one in my basement right now. I have two of them.
Do not say the old magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Oh my gosh, when those bulbs went out. Oh,
but the CRT filter is really, really subtle, and oh my gosh, it works for me so well. The curving at the edge of the screen is so slight that you don't notice it unless you're looking at it, and it gets that, not scan line, but you know how if you look really close at a CRT, you start to see like the rainbow sort of effect over everything?
Mm-hmm.
It's got that just a little bit. It is so subtle.
So clever.
So subtle,
clever,
so nice.
subtle.
Yeah.
It's those little things that just add up to an experience that's fun and different for me. And again, there's just nothing that looks like this. Even though, yes, these are anime style characters, they're so different. They're more reserved, even though there's, the pompadour and whatever. But I think that combination of all that just makes it more effective.
There are some things that look a little similar to this. The first credit that gets put out for visuals is Gen Kobayashi, along with Junko Sumimizu. But Kobayashi, I believe, was the character designer for The World Ends With You and Neo, The World Ends With You. Have you played those games before?
I've played The World Ends With You. We actually did a podcast episode on that one. And
nice.
I've started Neo, but I need to get back to it. I don't see the similarities, though, between those two.
There is a seed of that in Paranormasight. I can see it. It's more angular, and it's a little more like Burger King 90s kind of character designs with like, the bright purple vests and like the spiky hair. Yeah.
That is the best way to describe that ever. I've never thought of that. So good. I love that game too. But man, I'm going to steal that eventually.
Paranormasight is more mature than that, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's a similar sort of art family, a family of art history, I think. Kobayashi also did the Kingdom Hearts re-releases. I don't really see a lot of that in here outside of just the general anime aesthetic, but, your mileage may vary, I guess. We talked about the CRT hue. We talked about the brushed backgrounds. I want to just give another shout out to the set design on this. I love a pre-rendered background. And the pre-rendered backgrounds here look fantastic. They all look hand-drawn. I'm pretty sure they're hand-drawn. I'm pretty sure everything is. I don't know, though. And the way it contrasts with the bold outlines and colors of the characters, the colors of the background are bold too, but they're just subdued a little bit. So they're always contrasting with the foreground characters. There's never a question as to who's a character and who's blending in, or what's important and what's blending in. And just universally, I love all of these, whether it's just a banal street corner or whether it's like this horrific room full of gore and crime scene. Every location pretty much was cool to me.
Yeah, you're one of my people. I love pre-render backgrounds. They are almost a lost art at this point. I mean, it's so rare that we get them anymore. And I'm waiting for like the indie influx to try their hand at this. And I guess you could almost say this is that, I guess. I don't know what you consider this on a budget level.
Yeah, indie Square Enix. Them against the world.
Yeah, I do, I have a soft spot for Japan in general, but even if you didn't have that, these locations are cool just because of the pre-rendered backgrounds and combination with the retro art and the thicker lines of the characters. And yeah, you don't have a trouble. You know what you're going to click on because, yeah, it's standing out. There's a nice juxtaposition between the characters themselves and the background, which pre-rendered backgrounds have always been good for. Granted, it can be hard to navigate, but you don't have to worry about that in this game.
No, you don't. The character designs themselves look pretty good too. Nobody is super outlandish. When we keep saying that this is like adjacent to anime, and I worry that people get the wrong idea. Like, have you ever seen one of those memes where it's like, gee, I wonder who the main character is? And it's just an anime classroom full of normal people and one person in like a red getup and big blue hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like that. Like, two of the main characters are just normal schoolgirls. There's a detective. The detective's partner is literally just black pants, or maybe like khaki pants, white shirt. Like nobody looks ridiculous. And that's also something that I chalk up to being being a pro for like first time visual novel folks. That anime aesthetic I've heard from a lot of people that don't like the genre is the number one reason. They always say like, yeah, I just don't like the anime aesthetic. If that's you, this might be a good, ease into it. A little bit of sugar with the medicine never hurt nobody,
I don't know, but yeah, that I can follow that analogy.
Oh, come on. Mary Poppins. You know Mary Poppins.
Oh, I do apparently.
A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
No,
in the most delightful way.
In the most delightful way. Yeah,
come on,
I feel
you
like
know that song?
Apparently it's been long enough that I don't actually know if I've ever seen that movie fully through. So I think the anime part of it it's more like a slice of life, but obviously not nearly as vibrant or anything like that. But again, you're not going to be getting the Burger King 90s aesthetic from previous games.
Yeah. Nor are you going to get the in-your-face kind of what if Andy Warhol was twisted of like Danganronpa,
Yes.
It really is. It's really kind of like a superhero. Well, I don't want to say superhero comic and make you think this is like superheroes, but it's kind of like a Marvel comic meets anime. It's anime, but it's subdued. It's mature.
I don't even know if that's the right way. It's more like a non-vibrant Sunday morning cartoons in the newspaper brought to life.
Sure. Yeah. I distinctly remember there were one or two newspaper comics that came in the Sunday issues that were always like hyper realistically drawn. And then, I said, I don't care about this shit. Give me Hagar the Horrible and Garfield, directly underneath it. I can't remember the name of that comic though. It was like a series comic where it was like drawn in like a legitimate
I remember that
style. My grandma loved it.
The one I always liked was Get Fuzzy. I think that was the name of it. It was a cat and dog one.
Oh, I love Get Fuzzy.
That is the name? Okay, cool. That
dude.
Just unlocking an old school moment right now.
One more thing before we move on to music and sound. Speaking of the 80s aesthetic, there is a collectathon element to this game. It's totally optional, but you can find these stickers all around. I think there's 20 in all, and they are called the Mockingbirds. The Mockingbirds in this universe are a series of birds dressed up as 80s delinquents from Japan. Mocking birds is two words, they're rude to, they're a bunch of dude birds with rude tude, and they are universally amazing. I love every single one of these. They're all named after puns.
It's such a strange collectible that's so outside of what the game is presenting. I think that's why it works even better because it just doesn't make any sense.
Like for example, one's name is Haiku, Highghcoo, and they're all like wearing, leather jackets. They're dressed like bikers. They've got pompadours. One is Cacophony. Love it.
It's so dumb, but so good.
There's one of them that sounds like a Kojima character. Oh, Falcon Man. It's straight out of Kojima's book. Quackitude. Yeah, these are Budgie Mary instead of Bloody Mary. These are great. I love these so much.
And yeah, it's just an extra thing that you can do. Obviously, if you want 100% complete the game, you have to find all 20, which I did do. But it doesn't grant you anything. It's just a fun little side thing to hunt around while you're, using that 360-degree camera. There you go.
Yeah, and that's really all it is. It's good fun. I think I missed like 2 by the end. I was pretty bummed about it, especially because I got the one that's a real pain in the ass where you just have to keep visiting the lottery shop over and over, and eventually it's just RNG.
Yep, the only one that does it.
Let's talk music and sound. It took a little while for this soundtrack to grow on me, but it did.
That's good. I mean, you're going to have way more knowledge of this, obviously, but I think it does well with the horror element when you get into those few scenes, and I think it does, I don't know what track it is, when you're in an encounter and it's becoming tense, that music works.
Yeah, it's interesting. Narratively, they looked at horror as kind of a spice to be really parsimonious with. There is a $10 word for you, a parsimonious. It means particularly of money, to be a little bit stingy, but you can use it however you want in terms of holding back, reserved. This sucks. Who listens to this? I think they went a little further with the horror into the music. There's a lot more of that. We keep using Danganronpa as a touchstone because it's convenient and it's well known. That soundtrack is really rude, it's really brash, it's really high energy, high octane. This is not. It's more stylistically diverse than Danganronpa for sure. It's not afraid to be a little quiet. It's not afraid to use some found sounds. I really liked it. Again, composed by Hidenori Iwasaki. Also did Left Alive, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. There's a throwback. Remastered, I should say. As well as Adventures of Mana Remake. Also has a credit as the synth programmer on The Bouncer.
The Bouncer.
Amazing.
Really?
Yes. Yes. He's royalty. Do you have any standout tracks that you can remember?
I wish I had the list in front of me. The main theme is interesting, but I don't think that's the one. There's one that has this rising tension going on, but it has almost like bells in the background, I think.
I'm wondering if you're not thinking of the track titled Suspicion, which is the one that plays whenever you're going through the facts that you know, and you're like, well, I wonder how this relates to the Rite of Resurrection. And it's kind of got the
Yep, that's it. That thing, whatever you just did.
It's got your typical horror mystery elements. It's got your rhythmic pitch percussion, a melody, and this high vocal bell instrument, string ostinato. It's really good. I think one of the most popular tracks from this one, there are 2, but one of them is the Storyteller's theme.
Really?
Which is this Russian-inspired waltz that's heavily featuring an accordion with the melody on, I think it's a clarinet. I looked up a bunch of other folk instruments. I don't think it's anything like that. I think it's just a clarinet. Accordions are used all the time in folk music, and their various brethren, like the concertina, bandoneon, the Russian bayan, or however you pronounce it. Really, really cool. It's such a catchy little melody.
Yeah, the accordion really stands out in that track. And I feel like it fits well with that character and the oddness of it. For some reason, that pairing, the mask, the CRT, and the accordion, they all kind of just mesh together to be just off-kilter enough where you're like, this is weird, but also cool.
It is. It's very quirky, off-kilter, very out of place in what we're about to experience. And I think, so too is our narrator. This OST, though, it's very diverse. There's some songwriter-style piano guitar tracks. There's some orchestra stuff, some jazz, city pop, funk kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a really cool one with the detectives. I forgot about that track. That one's, again, a little bit out of the norm, which this game does, I guess, more often than I think, between the Mockingbirds, the Storyteller, and now some of the music. It's kind of just got that weird flavor to it.
That track that you're thinking of is Crime Busting with a Smile. That's the title.
That is a great name.
Oh yeah, dude, you're immediately hit with that funk guitar, heavy wah pedal on the funk guitar. You get the brassy trumpet and electric guitar doing like dual leads. You got that horn section backing them up. It is grooving and busting ass. It is great.
That reminds me of like 80s style. Like when
totally.
I think of they wanted to do a time period piece, that fits so well.
Oh, totally. You think of like the 80s, like that was after, jazz started moving into like a more funk and I don't want to say like widely accepted, that's not what I mean, but like more into popular like jazz rock, jazz funk, Weather Report, things like that. Maynard Ferguson. Totally. It's awesome. It's really cool. I also really liked Mio's theme, Psychic Girl. It's got this like really nice harpsichord patch, kind of like floating between major and minor. It's like this female vocal just soaring above it all. Really nice. Curse Echoes, that's the one that plays every time you get a curse echo, with that just leads off with that huge low piano note. And it's got the, I think the reversed sound effects to give you that kind of reverse cymbal hit, that like backmasking kind of thing. And the chanting that's just really rhythmic and noisy.
Yeah, it's a good touchstone for original time that happens during the story. I kind of like when, obviously games write themes for characters all the time, but I like when they have themes for certain things that always happen.
They did, in that interview, they did ask Iwasaki about the soundtrack. They asked, let's talk about the distinct various musical styles in Paranormasight. I loved the game's soundtrack and appreciated that not all the music was eerie and scary, despite being a horror adventure title. Can you share with us some of your thoughts when working on Paranormasight's music? What makes it different from RPGs like Stranger of Paradise? Iwasaki answered, they said, quote, "I'm glad you enjoyed the soundtrack. The following are some of the things I kept in mind. 1. Scatter synthesizer sounds throughout that would make players feel scared or uneasy just by listening to them. 2. Incorporate the essence of the music from the late Showa period, the 1980s. 3. Easy to understand melodies that appeal to emotions." I think they did that. And 4. Above all, give top priority to the director's wishes. Parentheses, this is important. I don't know if that's a joke.
Yeah, it's hard to read it, because I'm not listening to the person saying it as well, but that's an odd one. I feel like it's got to be like an inside joke.
Maybe at the most tongue-in-cheek, because, there's a point to be made there. If a composer doesn't have a full scope of the creative vision, of the storyboarding, of the in-depth character writing that's going on, they might miswrite a scene. So really, the creative director does have that widest amount of knowledge and would probably be the best person to say, no, actually, we don't need something quite so eerie here. We just need something a little unsettling. Or, no, actually here, we need more funk guitar and more wah and make that trumpet scream,
Always more funk.
Yeah, that RPG site interview is really, really nice. If you can, get through that terrible site on your computer, it's really nice to look at. So now we're going to get into the story. Just so you all know, what we're going to do first before we talk story, we're going to give a broad overview of what's going on. I realize we didn't do that. That's on me. But after that, we'll get into the prologue and we'll talk through the story. Spoilers abound after this. So if you wanted to jump off, now is the time. I encourage you to stick around because it's going to be a good time, and then stick around towards the end. You can hear all about Bits of Time, which is Michael's podcast. Anything else to add before we jump into the story of Paranormasight?
No, let's do it.
All right, let's go across these handful of eventful nights in Sumida City and talk all about the 7 mysteries of Honjo in Paranormasight. So just broad overview of the story here. Curses are appearing. 7 mysteries of Honjo. It's actually real. Like this is based on a very real thing in Honjo. on folklore. What it is these curse stones are going around, and people are getting a hold of them. And these curse stones have the power to kill. Once you have enough souls, what are called soul dregs, which are obtained from a person's soul after you kill them, you can perform the Rite of Resurrection, which allows you to bring somebody back from the dead. So you can imagine these people are getting these curse stones, they're out and about, they're wanting to kill so they can get all of the soul dregs to themselves and bring back their loved ones or whatever. You can imagine that that's going to drive a lot of people to do things that they might not otherwise do. Drives them past the point of morality. And we've got a handful of do-gooders, knuckleheads, and school children going around trying to stop this murderous rampage. Mysteries abound. I think that's a decent overview.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a solid hook. You want to kill the other people so you can bring somebody back. And so you assume that some people are going to have some tragic backstory where they want to bring somebody back to life. And I feel like that simple bit, that mystery, I mean, that's almost not even the mystery part of it. That's enough hook to get me to keep going.
One of the characters' motivations is laughably stupid.
Oh my gosh, we'll get to that one, yes.
Let's talk about what happens when you boot this up. So you boot this up and you're introduced to the storyteller. He's a man in a long black coat and hat, maroon gloves, and is wearing what looks like a red kimono or a robe underneath of his coat. He has long white hair, and notably he's wearing a mask that cuts off at the mouth and gives the appearance of a smiling old man. Now I looked into this. What I think this might be, I think this is a reference to a Japanese style of theater called No. Just in English would be pronounced N-O-H, let's say. It's this classical dance tradition in Japan. I think I read that it's the oldest that's still performed. I'm not sure its relation to Kabuki. I think it came before Kabuki. Not 100% on that. But it's a staged production. It can feature musical accompaniment, and it utilizes masks for the performers. And these masks are very stylized, like it has to be in theater so everybody in the room can see. And some of them do cut off at the chin area like they do here.
So is that connection just that you're interacting with the CRT, you have the CRT filter, he's telling the story, so he's just using a mask because it's theater-like?
Well, I think so. There's another type of theater, the Kyogen, that developed alongside the No. So much so that it was kind of performed during interludes during the No. My reading about it, it seems to be more comedic in style, but I think I read this, there was often a narrator involved in those. So it might just be a sort of subtle nod to that. It also sets up this idea that what we're about to see is a story that takes place. It's a TV drama. It's a story, and we're being led through the drama. We are an audience member to this tale. It's setting it up in this grandiloquent way that we are about to see this grand story, this big production, and we are going to be an audience member.
I could see when you think about the music choices for the storyteller theme in general, that fits a little bit more too. But yeah, maybe it's not that deep, I guess.
Well, whether it's deep or not, I think it's effective, or at least it's effective to me. I think sometimes those play within a play or that game within a game kind of deal, that can be a little bit trite, a little bit almost approaching self-parody. It doesn't always work for me. It does work for me here. Maybe it's just because it's presented as like an old, a retro TV kind of drama. I don't know. Nothing about this stood out to me as being negative.
Yeah, I would say, like, even when I say it's not that deep, I like everything they're doing. I love the storyteller. It's just so random. And I think going back to what you were saying about it maybe being trite, I feel like if a game does that, you're a game within a game or whatever it is, or the meta part of it, if you've played like just a handful of those games, like 3 of those games, it becomes like, oh, okay, I've seen this before. And it kind of loses its value.
Yes, that ties into the ending of this, which that is probably the strongest iteration of Your Mileage May Vary that's in this game. I don't know if everybody felt this way. I kind of see the ending as being very polarizing with what it wanted to try and do. We'll get there, but for now, the storyteller, he explains some basic functions, autosave, how the files and options works, and he asks for your name. And as we said before, he asks for your name, you type it, the music cuts out, and he said, "Did you say insert your Steam name, PlayStation name, Nintendo account name here. Did you say Bud Dink? And, you're supposed to go, oh my God.
Do you know what works better in this instance, though? I think because they cut the music out and it's kind of a close-up of his face, that little extra bit works for me.
And the close-up of the face with the mask on, too. You're getting flashbacks to the movie The Strangers, one of my favorite horror movies. And you're like, oh, shit, this is creepy.
Yeah.
It does get abandoned a little quickly, the meta element. Again, comes back into the ending. Your mileage may vary. After he gets your name, we start the story. And here's how he leads us in. From antiquity to present day, regardless of how society and civilization evolve, death has been a constant presence that none have ever escaped. Whether it is one's own or that of someone close, death is always a difficult thing to accept. This is an immutable reality, a value shared by all, no matter the age in which they live. In fact, oral traditions reflecting people's fears and prayers regarding death still remain. Ghosts, spirits, and so on. Similarly, in attempt to defy death, many curses, rituals, and customs have been born, from burning spirit incense to summoning the souls of the dead. Some of those secret arts are still being passed down to this day. And this is when he gives you, the player, the question, if you had the power to do so, would you bring someone back from the dead? And if memory serves, I think all of the answers are yes, but, yes, as long as it didn't hurt anybody. Yes, at any cost. Yes, as long as there's absolutely no consequences. I don't know. Is there a no in there in this first brush?
From memory, I don't think there is.
I don't think so either. But at any rate, he asks you that, and we're introduced to the main character, Shogo Okie.
Wait, are you just going to go past it? What's the answer to that question for you, Rick?
Would I bring someone back? I can't choose the answer no because it's not an option for me. So I choose yes as long as there's no consequences.
Okay, so like in real life, you would not bring somebody back from the dead.
No, I think I've read enough sci-fi and horror stuff to know that I should not be trying to play God with the natural laws of the universe. I would not try and bring somebody back.
That's probably a safer bet.
Are you saying you would?
I think I would, yeah.
Even after everything we've seen with Shogo and Haruo and everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But, it doesn't have to be like that, right? Our reality could be different.
To this game's credit, it does that trope, that bringing somebody back from the dead, in a very interesting, but kind of like just a tiny little twist that I wasn't expecting. And I was like, that is kind of a cool way to do it. And it's kind of closer to this like cosmic idea of reincarnation too, which, if anything exists, it's probably something like that, not like just straight up like, I am the reincarnation of Richard Petty from NASCAR or something or whatever. I don't know. I don't know why I pulled Richard Petty. I'm not even.
I was about to say, that is a random one to pull.
I'm not even a NASCAR guy, man. I don't watch that shit. I don't know. We're introduced to Shogo Okie. He's a 20-something-year-old. He's our MC, our main character, and he's out here with Yoko Fukunaga, a bubbly 23-year-old girl with a deep interest in the occult that you met recently. The two of you are in Kinshibori Park, Tokyo, around midnight. The game starts with her waking you up, you passed out, or something like that, and she gives you the tutorial of how to look around in this 360-degree environment. When you turn around, like about face, she is right up into the camera. Mini jump scare, which actually begins this game's perplexing relationship with cinematography. They really, really, really like putting the characters' faces very close to the camera, like full screen.
One of my favorite ones is later, where I think it's June. The detective comes out from like behind a tree and scared the living crap. I was like, how? We're in broad daylight, but you still scared me.
That is pretty cool how they did it, though, when you turn around and she's just right there. They do that a couple times throughout here. Another thing that they do a lot is characters will do duck faces quite a bit, like duck lips, like we used to do when taking selfies.
Very odd.
I cannot remember if I put it in the notes. I swear that they talked about that in the interview. I can't remember for sure. I might have put it in here. We'll see. Shogo, he says that he's got a thing for bubbly girls interested in the occult, and I have to agree. Finally, a protagonist onto which I can project myself.
You're the bubbly one, or you like the bubblies.
I like them bubbly. What can I say? The two of you are there for the rite of resurrection. So this is this, it's not really a MacGuffin. It is what everybody is chasing throughout this game. The Rite of Resurrection. Well, let's actually go on because I think I explained this here. You kind of in your fainting fit, you forgot, you're taking a second to get your bearings. A flashback fills you in. The two of them had a meet cute like a couple weeks ago. Yoko tells Shogo that she's looking for the Whispering Canal, one of the 7 mysteries of Honjo, for the purposes of the Rite of Resurrection. So, the 7 mysteries, these are urban legends that grew out of the Edo period, were passed down through word of mouth. They're telephone games, and they even comment on that in here. The original stories are probably a little different from the urban legends. They grew, they mutated, they became embellished over time, and the occult craze of the 80s kept them alive in a very kind of evil, mysterious way. There are also more than 10. Sure, fuck it, why not?
Hey, you know what? I think I understand why they have that in there now, right? Maybe because of how the storytelling goes. When you tell a story, you miss certain things or it evolves. Maybe that's why they chose that route.
I mean, if we're going to use any in-universe explanation, that's it, right? The telephone game, I heard that there were 7. Well, I heard from my cousin, it's actually 9. Well, my uncle, he works at Hihako Nintendo, and he said that there's actually only 5. That kind of deal.
Yeah.
Hihako Nintendo, sponsor us. The most famous of them, there are 7. We've got the Whispering Canal, the Fool's Procession, the Beckoning Light, the Haunting Clappers, the Evergreen Beach, the Taiko of Tsugaru, the Foot Washing Mansion, the One-Sided Reed, and the Ever-Burning Lantern. That's more than 7. Whatever. Those are the ones that have curses attached to them in this story. We don't necessarily need to go over every single one in detail, because the game doesn't really either. But let's take a look at the Whispering Canal, right? So every curse is going to have a couple of things attached to it in the files. It's going to explain the folklore, it's going to explain the curse mechanisms, and then it'll explain the actual origin that's tied to this event known as the Honjo incident. For the Whispering Canal, it says, many fishermen once gathered here on this section of the canal that ran through Honjo. As their days came to a close and the fishermen gathered up their cases, a terrifying voice would rise up from the canal, whispering, "Leave it behind." Those who ignored the voice found themselves unable to move and their previously full baskets of fish emptied. They would then be dragged into the canal, never to return. The curse power for this one, that's the urban legend. The curse power kills by drowning anyone who leaves the curse bearer behind. So that's the kind of curses we're dealing with. You've got these conditions like turn your back on this person, leave them behind. Another one is anybody who lies to you can be a victim of your curse. Another one is, like we said, anybody that hears the voice. What's another one? Anybody that has an element that can produce fire, like a lighter or a match on them. It's stuff like that. Like that's the Pokemon aspect of it, right? Or the Power Rangers aspect where everybody's got like a Saturday morning kind of power attached to their curse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't make that connection when I was playing this, but just because it's a little bit more, I'm going to get stomped to death by these feet or whatever the hell. But it is kind of like, okay, here's A. How do I counter it with B? Okay, don't have B, so do C. But I do like that you have to utilize that in the game mechanics as well. And nicely, you have all those files and you're like, oh, this does this. Let's rack my brain. How can I use what's either in the environment or what I've learned to get past these roadblocks?
Exactly. The Rite of Resurrection, this is self-explanatory, but a forbidden act said to have been concocted by a famous onmyoji from the past. Onmyoji, just think of like an ancient version of a politician. Kinda, that gets you close enough. There's a rumor that a manuscript called The Record of Fates detailing the rite was recently discovered by Hideki Araishi, a local historian who also teaches at the local high school, Kamogata High School. There's a rumor that the rite is older than the legends itself and is what ultimately led to the 7 mysteries. This is why Yoko, our bubbly little girl, and those that we're about to meet, are searching for the mysteries. So, you're probably thinking, 7 Mysteries of Honjo, Rite of Resurrection, Onmyoji, Record of Fates, Yin Scroll. There are a lot of proper nouns in this game. Yeah, there are. There's really no way around that. You just got to read the files. They're throwing a lot of proper nouns at you. Throughout this entire conversation with Yoko, she is making these really bizarre jokes about alcohol. And this has got to be a localization thing. I don't know that they talk about, alcohol in this way in Japanese, like spirits and spirits, in English. Like Shogo must have a strong tolerance because his spirit sense is so high. And she keeps saying like, oh, I bet you could slam back a few Moscow mules and hold your liquor. Like she makes these jokes constantly, and it's really, really clumsy. Like this is far and away, I think this is the worst writing in the game, and they lead off with it, which is just a really bizarre mistake. I almost tapped out whenever I was reading this. I was like, I can't do this for another 13 hours. Like this sucks. The writing is never like amazing in this game, but it gets much better from this. Like I don't know who thought this was a good idea. The gist is like what they want you to know is that Shogo has high spirit sense. He's attuned to the occult. Why they keep making these fucking puns is just beyond me. Even Shogo is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I always thought I was like missing something where she was supposed to be bubbly, so maybe she's trying to distract herself, but I think it's supposed to tell the player something as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think maybe they just wanted to make her seem a little bit awkward and weird, maybe.
Yeah,
like kind of dorky, I mean, again, your mileage may vary. Not for me. Didn't work for me. Might work for you. Yoko, at some point, will suddenly get extremely spooked, and she screams in terror that something's behind you. There's just no talking her down. You turn around. There's nothing there. This will continue until you notice the icon in the top left that says press left trigger. You cannot continue without pressing it. This is actually a point. Like, you cannot continue without pressing it. I tried knowing what I know after finishing it. You can't. So you press it. There's a sort of audio-visual reaction, like a filter and sound. And when you turn around, Yoko is crumpled on the ground, dead. Water is pooled in her mouth, leaking out from her eyes and nose. She's been killed by this curse. Shogo freaks out, and he notices a keychain thing on the ground. And this is our first run-in with the curse stone. Every single one of these curses has a curse stone attached to it. This death scene was more graphic than I was expecting. Like, it's not graphic, like there's not blood and distended guts and bile or anything, but it is much more gruesome than the art style would have you believe until you see it, It's
striking in a very creepy sort of way. I was totally caught off guard by it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to like this game. I knew that immediately.
And they do a little bit of the Danganronpa thing where they do multiple camera shots of it. The screen kind of shakes a little bit. The music gets very loud and discordant. This is also where the jump scare with a shriek happens, like just a straight up like little girl shriek. I hate it. I don't know why they did that. I mean, I know why they did it. They wanted, live streaming, right? They want the reaction.
I guess so, yeah.
Fucking jump scares, man. We also see the specter of the Whistling Canal here. Whispering Canal.
Just whistling down.
If you don't whistle while you take your fish home, if you don't whistle while you work, the 7 dwarves will come and stomp you to death. That's this curse stone. This is where we get, Shogo is, the curse is absorbed into Shogo because he picks up the stone, and because, as we'll come to learn, he desperately wants to bring Yoko back. More on that in a second. It tells you, how the curse works. Every time somebody absorbs a curse, they see the curse's spirit, and they see these quotes on screen that kind of relate to the background of the curse. And they also, there's a quote that I didn't take down that says, like, a murderous rage seeps into me like thick black tar. Just really good horror imagery like that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really striking introduction to the curses.
And I think a very striking opening, minus the clumsy spirit thing. You have your 360 camera, you have a little jump scare, you have, you're surrounded by this interesting art, and you're just wondering why these people are out here, and then the dead body appears, and you're like, all right, cool. And then you have the curse stuff. So a nice introduction where you're like, all right. And we'll get to what happens right after this too, where it just, all right, I'm ready.
Yeah, one quick thing
Show me
about
more.
what happens right after this too. You kind of have to just buy into the writing. Like, the writing is serviceable. You just got to buy into the fact that this is, it's a thriller, You're not supposed to be analyzing this story. Shogo immediately decides that he is going to seek out other curse bearers and kill them, living human beings, to resurrect this random girl that he met about a month ago and went on a date with. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever, man.
Bubbly occult ladies, they just wrap you around your finger,
Listen, I like him too, but I'm not going to kill folks for him.
Yeah.
That's at least after date 4, man.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true. We've all been there. It's true. This is actually a pretty cool little introduction to the rest of the characters, though. As we're going through with Shogo, we get to meet the other main characters that we're going to have throughout the game, and, spoiler alert, we kill them. We kill the rest of our main characters in this prologue. You first encounter Takumi Yumioka. He is an executive at your company. This is kind of like a red herring. He shows up. He's acting very creepy. He's out here at night. He knows who you are, but you don't really know him. And he's like, I know that you're a curse bearer. I won't tell anybody that you killed Yoko if you just give me your curse stone. And you kind of, your curse can kill anybody that turns around. You say, oh man, I should tell you, after you talk to him for a little bit, I should tell you, I called the police. You're not going to want to be here, man. And he's like, you damn you. And he turns around and you kill him. Interestingly enough, I'm curious, did you notice this your first time through? You don't have to press the left trigger this time.
Oh, I wonder why that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think you know.
yeah, actually, I do know.
He's not one of our 3 protags. He's like I said, he's the red herring. Shogo is going to track down and kill our soon-to-be 3 protags now, though. Kind of unceremoniously. You just meet him, you kind of talk to them for a second, you realize who they are, and he doesn't even think about it. He just does it. Again, wild. Absolutely wild. They lead off with the worst writing. It gets better. Shogo's stone fills up, seemingly explodes, and he dies. And this is when we get this interlude with the storyteller, who explains the concept of the story chart to you. Anybody that's played a visual novel knows about the story chart. It branches off depending on what route you're on. The routes here are very short, basically just like ending scenarios like this. And he's like, what does he say? He asks if we know how many people Shogo has killed. This is kind of one of the meta elements. It changes each and every time, depending on how many times you press the left trigger, depending on how many times you let Shogo do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of like that bit. And obviously, it ending with the character you think might be in the game dies. So you're like, all right, I met both of these characters. Everybody's just dying. What's that game actually going to be about?
So using the story chart, we can go back. We can prevent Yoko's death. We are playing God in this TV drama. Instead of turning around when Yoko starts to get freaked out, we don't take our eyes off of her. This is the first time, we get the option to select, don't turn around. And Shogo will think to himself, huh? Why am I thinking that? Why am I thinking don't turn around? And then you can just be like, just who cares? Just don't do it. And he's like, okay. This doesn't pay off until the end. I kind of like it. We never take our eyes off her. This leads us, she stays alive. This leads us to an epilogue scene after they part. Shogo lies dead. No matter what happens, Fate's Wheel is always going to have Shogo dead and buried.
Which is an interesting way to start it, where you're like, okay, so you think the whole point of it is to keep the girl alive, but then the guy dies. So you're like, okay,
yeah.
What's going on?
And that's the prologue. Then the 3 routes open up of our 3 protagonists, the 3 people that we killed. And I got to admit, whenever I saw that it was the 3 people that we killed, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I don't know where this is going now. But that's the prologue, that's the hook. From here, we go through each of the routes. Now, again, the reason that we're not doing these beat by beat is because one, they bounce back and forth, like different conditions have to be met in Route A to proceed in Route B. They go back and forth. Just playing through one route, even after you beat the game straight through, does not give you a full story picture, so you have to go back and forth. I don't like how that feels in this podcast medium, so let's just talk about the rest of the story as a whole. So, which character do you want to start with, Michael?
I want to make one clarification, or I need a clarification.
Oh, correct
from you.
me. Oh, let me correct you.
No.
Who's correcting who? Who's on first? Speak, man, speak.
A little Abbott and Costello going on. All right.
They're the 7th and 8th curse stones. You don't want to know. You don't want to know how to activate theirs.
When you say, I know you don't like it for the medium, did you like the branching story and the going back and forth when you're actually playing the game?
Oh, yeah. As a narrative device, I like it just fine. I just don't think it works for this specific style of podcasting, which, believe me, I do not pick games just because I think they'll be good on the podcast. Not all the time, anyway.
I figured that's what it was, and I think you even might have mentioned that earlier, but I wanted that clarification.
No, yeah, I think it's cool going back and forth between each of them. You get different points of view. I like it. I think it's good.
I think we got to start with the detectives. I mean, there's more than one detective in this game, but I'll let you pick what you think I'm meaning.
Okay, yeah. I'm guessing you mean Tsutsumi and Ario.
You are correct.
Yeah, if there is a fan favorite, it's got to be these two. They've got this buddy cop dynamic. Tsutsumi is like a 50-year-old grussled cop. They're both on the police force. He's kind of grussled. He's no nonsense. He's a bit of a curmudgeon. And Ario is
the veteran.
Yeah, the veteran. Ario is his like 20-something-year-old, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, hopelessly naive, go-get-him attitude little assistant, always making jokes about him being senile and losing his memory, like to the point where it kind of grinds the dialogue to a halt as he keeps making these jokes. And Tsutsumi is just like, you don't have any respect. Why would you say that? And they just do it again and again and again. But they've got a buddy cop thing going on, good cop, bad cop kind of thing. And interestingly, it's Tsutsumi that gets his curse stone. It's not Ario, but the two of them do work together throughout.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice twist because I thought they would both be having it. But again, yeah, it's overdone. The good cop, bad cop. I mean, it's not really good cop, bad cop. It's more the buddy system like you were talking about. But this pairing just works for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they've got some of the best music in the game, too, with that solving cases with a smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've just got a really lovable dynamic. I mean, yeah, the writing is sometimes kind of clumsy, but it works. They're very likable. It's interesting. They're investigating the death of another police officer named Hajime Yoshimi, who was closer to Ario. Like they weren't BFFs, but they would go drinking. Like they knew each other. They liked each other. But it's Tsutsumi that gets the curse stone, even though like he doesn't have a stake in bringing anybody back necessarily.
Yeah, he has a different, we'll call it story beat for himself, including his family. But I thought that was interesting that the main death doesn't tie back to him.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think they wanted to highlight his relationship with his daughter and how that ties into everything, probably. And of course, with the culprit, we should say. In addition to this going on, there is an escaped serial killer that actually, like, they do a write-up in the files about this. The serial killer went on a killing spree of children some 20 years previous, like pretty gruesome, grisly stuff. And he breaks out of jail. Well, he doesn't break out. He gets out on, parole, good-natured parole after 20 years. And immediately just calls up Tsutsumi on a payphone and starts fucking with him and saying like, hey, I have a curse stone. It lets me kill hundreds of people and you're all fucking dead. I hate you. It's that kind of, get out of jail trope,
Yeah, like here's the main bad guy. Even though I did kind of like it, even though it is a little bit overdone. I think that angle helps with the curse stone with Tetsuyu. That sounded wrong. But I think June's part kind of makes sense when you think about you want them each to have a tentpole moment in the story. And I feel like if you gave them both the curse stone, it would kind of fuddle that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. The two of them together are going through, they're trying to collect the curse stones to put a stop to all of this. They don't necessarily want to revive their fallen comrade. They want to get these stones because people are killing other people, and, you know, they're police. They, at least at this period of time in Japan, they want to help the community. Novel concept. So they're going around, they're not using it notably. He threatens to use it to a few people. Like there's this one guy, this well-dressed young kid in a sweater that's got a curse stone. I don't remember his name offhand, but he shows up in a couple routes. He is the one that you had mentioned, Michael, where you turn the volume down to get past his curse.
Yes, that little dweeb guy. I don't like him. I can't remember his name.
Spineless guy. But he factors into a couple of these, and, you know, we end up taking his curse stone from him. We don't hurt him. I think what Tsutsumi says is like, yeah, I'll report it in. They'll take him in, you know, to hold him, to question him, things like that.
And I like that bit because, yeah, if we don't, having at least one set of characters in this that's not going around like, I just want to kill everybody, you know, like the prologue. We don't need that for every character.
Well, notably, there's only one character that's really, well, maybe two, but only one of our characters that's like that. Tsutsumi, it's so convenient. His curse stone will trigger if somebody lies to him, like knowingly tries to deceive him. Like
perfect for his detective.
pretty damn on the nose for a cop. But he just straight up tells people this. He's like, yeah, I've got a curse stone. If you try to lie to me, it's going to activate, you know? What do you want? You want to die, or do you want to get through this?
I love that they do that. He's just putting all of his cards on the table right away. Like, all right, let's just do this, you know?
I do like him. I do like they go through solving crimes, being a force for good. They end up teaming up, funny enough, with, oh, by the way, the two of them, Tsutsumi and, you know, by extension, Jun Ario, are on the paranormal division. You know, they're working this case because it's part of the paranormal division, you know, curse stones, things like that. And they, funny enough, get tied up with another character in another route, Mio. And she is the sort of deuteragonist, the secondary character to the protagonist of Yakko. How do you feel about Yakko and Mio? Did you like these two?
I did, because this gave me a little bit more of that horror element, spooky, paranormal stuff. I mean, using the, why can't I think, Ouija board and all that. Like, I like this kind of stuff, and I feel like having different age groups really helped this character party we have going on here. And
Sure.
I like that they're not the typical typecasted characters. Like, Yakko is, like, she's kind of fit and athletic, but she's not like, I don't know how to describe it. She's not typecasted.
She's generally like a do-gooder, heart of gold, but every so often she like rolls up her sleeves and she's like, I'm about to kick some ass. And you're like, where did this come from?
I don't. Then she pouts her lips and does the duck face, and you're like, who is this girl? But again, when all these characters interact, because I think June also knows Richter, which is the other private investigator, and I'm like, I like that all these characters start intertwining in their stories.
Yeah. Speaking of intertwining, they intertwine, Yakko and Mio do, with Tsutsumi and Ario, because Mio is a special operative, an unpaid worker, as they call her, with the paranormal division. She's got very high spirit sense, so she can she's very good at solving paranormal crimes.
And she's underpaid or not paid because she's still in school, you know?
Labor violation. She's friends with Yakko. Yakko's good friend, best friend, Michio Shiraishi, recently died by suicide in an event that totally shocked the school. The story is she jumped off the roof. There was talk that her grades were going down because she was in an abusive household. The whole community kind of knew about her dad, her stepfather, being crazy abusive to her and her mother. They don't know how deep that goes, but that's the sort of story around, and presumably why she jumped off the roof. And Yakko and Mio, when we start with them, they're in the school at midnight playing with a Ouija board, like you said, trying to figure out, spirit of the Ouija board, did Michio really die by suicide? And the answer, they say, no, it was an accident. So that kind of starts their investigation. They're like, okay, how in the world did Michio die? And once Yakko gets the curse stone here in the school at midnight, Yakko is determined to bring her back. Mio keeps saying, this is a bad idea. You know, you're going to have to kill people. And Yako's like, I'm just going to feel it out. If it happens, it happens. I don't want to, but, if it happens, who knows? But we're bringing Michio back. That's kind of their angle.
It's a very teenage youth like thought process, like, oh, let's just do it. She's bursting with that attitude and passion, so it kind of makes sense for her character.
Yeah, I like that she's not like outright going to look for people to kill, though. There's one scene where she sees a delinquent schoolgirl in the school at night with a teacher, and there has been rumors about the teacher, and she thinks that something funny is going on, that teacher is trying to take advantage of the girl, which makes Yako furious, and you actually do get a little prompt in the corner. You can trigger your curse, or at least so you think. If you trigger it, nothing actually happens. The end result here is the same either way, which is kind of what I was saying at the beginning. Like, choices don't really matter here. You're kind of on a roller coaster ride. You can't really change the track too much, but yeah, Yako is not bloodthirsty, but every so often she has this intense sense of justice. How did you feel about them teaming up with the detectives?
I don't know what it is about games where separate characters are intertwining with other main-ish characters, and I feel like, well, one, this is where it gets one of the bigger jump scares for me from June, which I'm not happy with in the park. But again, I feel like it makes sense because, one, she's linked to the investigation, all about the paranormal. And I like the dynamic of June and Yako in particular, because they're both kind of a little bit more passionate than their counterparts. So they kind of feed off each other.
It's also cool, too. The three of them kind of gang up on Tsutsumi a lot. Yako and Ario are kind of, jovial and cheerful. Mio is a little more reserved. She's a very shy girl. Mm-hmm. She's a transfer student. She transfers around a lot because she works with the paranormal division. She kind of just goes to whatever school needs help with, paranormal cases. But she's still she's a schoolgirl at heart. Like, her and Yako, whenever they get excited about something, like when they first meet Tsutsumi, Ario makes a joke to try and get them to talk to us, the police, because who wants to talk to the police? They, to bribe them, Ario's like, oh, the boss will buy us all sushi, and he's like, wait, what? I didn't agree to this. And they all get kind of giddy and happy and kind of teaming up against him, and he's just like, oh, you kids. It's a cute dynamic. I worked for me a lot.
The old school veteran guy with the young crowd always is a win.
It makes me wonder if they did go out for expensive sushi, because this game, the timeline of this is not, it's only a couple days, right?
Yeah, which I think is another strong selling point for it. I like when games don't take place in a long period of time, just because not all the time, but I found that this worked for this specific story.
Yeah. It also works too. Once it's daytime, the curses can't be cast. There's a lot of lore stuff we're not going into. The curses are stronger at night because of this ridiculously named spell called the Feast of Shadows that makes the curses way more powerful and potent, that somebody behind the scenes is casting to get everybody to cast the Rite of Resurrection. There's a puppet master behind all of this. And I don't mean to diminish it or be reductive, but again, there's no easy way to do this as a beat by beat without sprawling it into multiple episodes, which we could have done, but again, it's going to be going back and forth. I don't know. Again, for the couple of you that are out there listening that are disappointed by that decision, I'm sorry, but it's still fun to talk about the game. Do you want to talk about our last of the main routes?
Yeah, I think this one is the more tragic one out of all of them, and I feel like it has a more somber tone. Minus you have Richter, so it kind of has that balance a little bit, or maybe not balance. It's it's teetering that way.
Extremely tragic, and probably the most interesting of the bunch. I think this is my favorite main character for sure. This is a woman named Haruwe. Her route is also unique in that it begins immediately with her getting her curse stone. She's consulting with this private detective, private eye named Richter, who's wearing this ridiculous white puffy shirt and like a white feather cap kind of thing.
It's so good.
he's so flamboyant. But, you know, it keeps up the theme of like main character and a sidekick kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Her whole deal, the reason she's consulting with him is her son, her child son, was kidnapped and murdered some time ago. Like kidnapped by a kidnapper who was calling the police and taunting them. The police's ineptitude is actually what caused the guy to never get caught. And he ended up chopping up her, like literally chopping up her son. And because of that police ineptitude, she has a deep, deep distrust of the police. So she is, from the start, she immediately says that she is all for using this curse. If she can bring her son back, she will kill. And she is upfront about that immediately. She's just like, yeah, I will kill. And Richter is like, now, ma'am, you better not do that. I'm going to be along with you, and we're going to make sure you don't do that. And she's just like, would it be such a terrible thing? For after what I've endured, would it be so bad? Like it is really fucking tragic what happened to her. I can totally understand her viewpoint too. Like she's clearly depicted as still being in the grieving process. Her eyes look very sullen, like she is not getting much sleep. Her hair is very disheveled. She has a very meek body language, very clearly still in the depths of grief. A tragic character. I love this whole route.
I feel like what really sells it too is the no music when she's sitting alone in her just giant looking mansion. So she's well off and you can just kind of almost feel the bitterness and grief just staying with her. I feel like the dynamic of her with Richter, obviously she doesn't like the police. So she, you know, you introduce this other character that's a private investigator. It just really works.
Yeah. He's determined to figure out who was responsible for her son's death. He is an ex-police detective. He left the force because he wanted to help people like this and not get caught up in like bureaucratic paperwork and stuff like that. He wanted to make like real change. So he became a PI. He's kind of like, he knows Tsutsumi and Ario. They're not like at odds, but they're also not friendly either. You know, like they're very clearly different groups trying to solve different things.
I think June was in the academy with Richter as well. So that's kind of their connection. So they're acquaintances.
Yeah. And he really wants to find the murderer, figure out, you know, what exactly happened to with this whole case. And she's along for the ride. She's like, yeah, I hope you find something, but also I will kill people to bring him back. And he's like, now, ma'am, you better not do that.
You don't want to do that.
But like she kind of talks him into helping her like obliquely. Like he's like, well, you know, I'll let you know if I see anybody. And if I think they're a curse bearer, I guess I'll tell you. Like he's so complicit in all of this.
Yeah, aiding and abetting.
Yeah, in no court of law would he be deemed innocent. It's very funny.
What I do like about this dynamic, then, you have the two detectives that are trying to save everybody and solve the case. You have her that just wants to kill everybody to get her what she wants. And then you have the girls in the middle, kind of like splitting the difference. Like Yako kind of understands all that. Mio's going to help her. I like that they're different enough, but they're all, you know, they're all going to intertwine, obviously.
Yeah. Speaking of the girls, there is a plot point where we realize that Michio was not killed. She did not die by suicide. She did not jump off the roof. She was wildly depressed because she was being sexually abused by her stepfather, who was a real piece of fucking shit. Also beating her mom. So like she did have a bad home life, but she did not die by suicide. She was hit by a speeding van that was being driven by that sweater chuckle fuck that we had mentioned earlier with the cursed stone that you have. Utaro, I think that's it, actually.
Is that his name?
I think so.
Chuckle fuck.
Where you have to turn down the voice volume to like outsmart him. It was a hit and run. You know, she hit him, or he hit her, and that's how she died. there is a plot point where she possesses Yako. And this is set up from the beginning. They talk about possessions and how, like, you know, people that are possessed, they don't even know it most of the time. And, you know, if the spirit had a really close connection to them, sometimes they can take over the body for brief periods of time. And that happens with Yako. And there's like one ending where Yako comes back alive and kills Yutaro, which is a bad ending. They immediately take you back and say, now try again.
Which she should be allowed to kill him.
Yeah, he's a real piece of work. But that's a plot point. Like, she gets possessed. What are you feeling about that?
I don't love that, even though I know it's a thing that happens a lot in especially horror adjacent things. I don't like, one, that there's no real way for the character themselves to know that they were possessed. I don't like that bit because it just kind of creates a convenience for storytelling reasons.
You might be right. I actually kind of did like it though, because when Yako finds out that she's being possessed, she freaks out. She's like, oh my God, that means like I was kind of complicit in, you know, this person dying. Oh my God, like I didn't want this. And like she's freaking out. She's like, the consequences of these actions are on me now. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, yes. I guess the way they handle it specifically, in a broad terms, I don't like it, but this one I'm okay with.
No, that's totally fair. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. What I also like too is at some point they exorcise her on a Stairmaster. No, I'm just kidding. They get the demon out of her, you know? Mio leads this, and she's like, you know, we have to let Michio rest, basically. And we got to get her out of you. And they do that, and it's like way more touching than I was expecting. Like Yako and Michio get to like meet in this sort of world between the living and the dead, and they get to like have their final goodbyes. It's really touching.
Yeah, and I feel like that is a nice cap to her story. I was going to say something more, but I don't remember what the fuck I was going to say, so we're just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, it's nice. After that, they're kind of full on with like helping the detectives, you know, put a stop to this cursed stone stuff. Now, speaking of the detectives, we've got to talk about Satsumi's daughter. She plays a huge role in this. Do you remember her name? Is it Ayane or is it Ayame?
Ayame. Ayame Tono?
Ayame Tono, yes.
Yeah, she's a university student, and she's kind of flighty. She's flighty for a reason, I feel like, to throw people off.
Yes. Now, you mentioned she's a university student, and we mentioned her last name's Tono. So two things. One, she took a new name. Her backstory is that she was adopted by Satsumi. It's even crazier than that.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we're past spoilers, and this episode's not going to be too much longer. The Rite of Resurrection, the way it works, is it's not just an instant reincarnation. Nejima, this serial killer that was doing the child killings before, was doing all of that to get Soul Dregs to bring his fiance back. And how it worked was she was reborn, but her soul was put into this newborn baby that I'm pretty sure was birthed out of one of the corpses, which is just fucking brutal.
Yeah, it's just,
she was reborn into this baby. Her soul's in there, and she has no idea who he is. So he got his wish, but now there's this baby that needs to be taken care of. Really tragic. I really like how they handle that rebirth aspect. It's just a little twist, but it's like, yeah, would you be okay with somebody being resurrected if it meant they were a new person in a new body and they never knew who you were? Are you going to admit that is a purely selfish thing from your point of view, just to have the satisfaction of knowing you brought them back? Is basically, I think, what it's asking. I love it. I think it's a cool twist.
And I think it really it's at odds with what the serial killer wanted, because obviously he loved his fiance, but now he has a baby. So it's like, those are two very different things.
Yeah, they made plenty of rom-com movies about, you know, an unexpected baby. Ooh, what? And this is not that. You also mentioned that she's a uni student. She is an art student. Particularly, she is an art student of ukiyo-e, which is that style of woodblock painting. The most famous ukiyo-e painter, artist that we would probably know is a guy by the name of Hokusai. If you've ever seen the painting, the very famous painting that I'm pretty sure Ed Hardy in the 2000s co-opted into his shitty shirts, you know? Is Ed Hardy still a thing?
Oh, The Wave? The Wave?
Yeah. Let's not talk about Ed Hardy. Yes, The Great Wave off Kanagawa. That is his most famous. Fun fact, did you know he's also very famous for one of the earliest tentacle porn paintings?
I did not know that, but you know?
Yes, I think it's called The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife or something. It's, I'm not trying to be crass about it. Like it's a very interesting work, but it's very much a woman being pleasured by octopus. And, it does say a lot about...
Start a trend.
Listen, it says a lot about like sexual mores at the time and norms, but it's also an octopus pleasuring a woman. So, I mean, I don't know, dude.
Water themes. There's a lot of water themes.
Well, it's Japan, man. There's water everywhere.
That's true.
Plenty to drink. That poet didn't know what he was talking about. But she is obsessed, Ayame Tono is, with this guy. And literally, that's why she is pursuing the Rite. She wants to bring him back because can't you just imagine like what he could have done in the real world now? He wasn't done giving yet. And that is the most fucking vapid, sophomoric choice of motivation ever. And like, I think the characters kind of get that. Like, nobody is like, yeah, that's a good idea, Tono. Like,
yeah, I love that her father's just like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's why you're doing this?
It's absurd. And she's manipulating. Her character is kind of cool, though. Like, she deeply hates the police because of her dad, Tsutsumi. But she's manipulating Yutaro and she's just like, yeah, I don't like him, but he's spineless and he does what I say because he wants to date me. So, like, I'm trying to get the curse stones, and once he gets enough, I'm just going to take it from him and, do my thing. She's kind of ruthless, kind of sociopathic in that way. Pretty cool character, but she's estranged from her father. She left. I don't quite remember why. Do you remember why she left?
I think it was something to either do with his long work hours and the mom. And I can't remember what the pivotal point was, or like the breaking point.
Yeah, it was something like that, like neglectful childhood.
Oh, I think it was also about her being adopted. Like she found that out later, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, and that comes to a head. They, in the very end of the game, have this really climactic moment where the two of them meet for the first time in years. Like, she actively avoids him. Aereo kind of fucking makes fun of him all the time. He's just like, you don't even know where your daughter lives? Man, she must hate you. And he's just like, why would you say that to me, man?
I know.
But they have this climactic showdown. They both have curse stones. They're both like, look, I'll use it. Like, I don't want to, but I will. And they have this climactic showdown where it's like, did you help Nejima with the murders? Did you kill him? And she's like, no, I didn't. And yes, I did kill him. He said he was going to hurt me. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm going to kill again to bring this guy back. And he's just like, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. What are you doing? But it's this big climactic moment where she's just like, you have to tell me the truth. If you don't, I'm going to be able to use my curse and kill you. Am I adopted? Like, am I your real daughter? And it's this climactic, dramatic moment where, and I think you can say no, but it plays out the same way, where you're just like, no matter what, you are our daughter. You might not be our flesh and blood, but like, we raised you, we loved you, like, you are ours. And it's this emotional moment, but it feels just so unearned to me. Like, they did not set this up in any way for it to succeed. They highlighted that, yes, like, she hates her father. And him, like, the most they did with him is like, yeah, I think about her. I hope she's doing well. It sucks that she's estranged, but like, what are you going to do? They really just did not set this up to succeed. This whole ending sequence between them fell so flat for me. It was really disappointing.
I think the part that worked for me is on his end. I feel like he is trying to like call back home, talk to the wife, figure out where the daughter is. So there's at least enough breadcrumbs there. And I do like his, like, what he's known for, being kind of like a distant, he doesn't show much emotion, to like June and everybody. So him standing up for like, okay, you are my daughter. And even though that will end up killing him, he stand on that. But I agree. On the flip side, the daughter has just one, stupid motivations, and two, unearned on her part. So it makes his part not as good. So conceptually, I love the idea. The execution, there wasn't enough to build up to this moment.
Totally. Yeah, well said. Another thing too is like, this is their only interaction in the game. Like, had they worked up to it, like them having tense interactions before, back and forth, like a blowout somewhere in between. Like, if they would have set it up a little better, this could have landed more, because as it is, they're trusting the viewers to put a lot of that backstory together in their head, even though it's not conveyed to them, which isn't a bad thing. But if you're not going to give any backstory outside of just the premise, you've got to work a little harder on stage to build up that relationship. You can't just bring us into the climax immediately and expect it to have the same emotional weight, I think. And I could be wrong. I'm not saying that I'm right, but that's how it came off to me. So this whole grandiose ending where like she uses his curse on him, she uses her curse on him because like she perceives this as lying. Like, you know, you adopted me, you won't even be honest to me right now. Like, how could you? You are the scum of the earth. I hate the police. I hate you. And this is the only time in the game where somebody doesn't immediately die by getting hit by a curse. Like, he's standing there, you know, bloody and beaten, making his last proclamations like, no, you may have been adopted, but I love you so much. That kind of thing.
That moment, really good. It works, but again, it would work better if they just... I get it that they wanted to have these characters all meet and you finally figure out the connection. Oh, that's his daughter, yada, yada. But because we didn't have enough before that, again, it doesn't make the moment as strong.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, too. He does die, like in the canonical ending of the game. Well, let me rephrase that. The ending that does not involve the secret true ending, like he still dies, right? Like this isn't just a branch off path.
I'm pretty positive that is correct, because I kept going back and forth when I was going through this a little bit and kind of jumping around in certain chapters. I went through this scene again to make sure, but I don't know because of where it's placed in the timeline. Does this technically get overwritten? I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know. They play with overwriting a lot too. And speaking of the timeline, we should probably talk about the ending. The basic ending, you get to the end. The gist of it is, I know we skipped over a lot, I'm sorry again. The Onmyoji left behind, his name is Seimin. He left behind this scroll called the Record of Fate's Yin Scroll that explains how to stop the seven mysteries, the curses, because he knew that this was going to cause trouble. He wanted to leave it behind for people to stop it in the future. And the way to do that is you have to unite, his mind, spirit, and body, and bring it together, and it'll, stop the curse, basically. Now, in the basic ending, that's Mio and Ario figuring all of this out. This is after Tsutsumi dies. They meet they meet Yoko from the beginning, the one that we saved. Remember, whenever we overwrote the original timeline, we saved her. She comes up, she's acting weird as shit. So the two of them, they're just like, let's get away from her. They turn around, and she gets them with the curse. Which, in retrospect, then I'm thinking maybe the spirit puns, she was trying to get Shogo to turn around, maybe. That's about as charitable as I can be with that, given who they really are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
That's got to be the reason, right?
I honestly don't know, because I still don't get that part of the beginning. So, but that signifies Yoko is the mastermind. She's been pulling this since the beginning. You get kicked back to the narrator, and he's just like, well, what an unfortunate turn of events. But can you figure out how to change it? This is the only time where you go back to the story chart. Typically, if you go back, any scene that has a different branching path that you haven't explored will be lit up. This time it does not. This is the only time it doesn't do that. You have to go all the way back to the beginning with Shogo. In one of the early scenes, you can see, this is, I think this is directly after Yoko died, I think. Yes, it is, because the Hohaku Soaps guy is walking towards you. But you see this will-o'-the-wisp in the background, and it's there in the first playthrough too. I don't think you can interact with it, or maybe you can. No, you can't.
Okay.
I don't think you can.
Okay. But it is there though, because I remember seeing it my first playthrough, and I'm like, what the hell is this? But it's there, and if you interact with it enough, it'll come towards you, and you touch it, and you get kicked back to the narrator, and he's like, okay, You figured it out, but just to make sure that you didn't get here by accident, let me just ask you. He knowledge checks you. He's like, have you been paying attention? Take my quiz and find out. Enter your email for results. $1.99 a month. You get the premium edition. But he asks you these questions, like, oh, fudge. Do you remember the questions he asks offhand before, like, the last big one?
No, I know it's how many people are dead or died. How many people killed.
Well, the big one is he asks how many people did Shogo kill? And that answer can change because, like, the whole thing, remember in the beginning, you have to press the left trigger. That's you as the player initiating that curse. After that, you can actually not press it, and Shogo will still kill people.
Yes.
So that's Shogo doing it. So there's a differentiation between you and Shogo, which ends up to this very end point, these three, the mind, spirit, and body of that Onmyoji of Seimin. The body is Shogo. Shogo is his direct descendant, and this is confirmed in like the files, I'm pretty sure. But he also has strong spirit sense. That's the body. The mind or the spirit, I can't remember which one, is the curse stone, and that's the will of the wisp, right? That's that. That's why it came to you. So that's that. And then that leaves the last one. Again, I don't remember if it's mind or spirit, but whatever the last one is. The reincarnation of Seimin, and that's when the reveal is it's you, the player.
Yeah.
No. We got this a little mixed up in our conversation. Remember when we were talking earlier, we had mentioned that it was set up as a precedent in this game that spiritual possessions occur, and that when they occur, the person being possessed often doesn't even know that it's going on. It's set up in the game that if the spirit and the person being possessed had a strong relationship, that the spirit could then carry out different actions, more in-depth actions, take more control, basically. Point is, spiritual possession can occur. The possessee doesn't necessarily know that it's happening. That was set up, and that's what's happening here. In the fiction, Seimin's spirit is possessing you, the player, and is getting you to enact change on all of these goings-on. Getting you to enact change with Shogo, telling him to not turn around, getting you to enact change to tell him to pitch his lighter so Harue's curse stone doesn't get him, telling Haruo to do things, telling Tsutsumi to do things, telling Yako and Mio to do things. That is the game's big twist. Not that you are the reincarnation of Seimin, as we erroneously said, but that Seimin's spirit has possessed you, the player, and you didn't even know it. How dare you? Anyway, let's get back to the show.
I can't decide if I like that. Like, I like that the baby is the daughter of the lover, or not the daughter, is a reincarnation of the fiance, right?
And is also Ayame Tono, by the way. I don't think we mentioned that.
Oh yeah, yes. I like that aspect, like, and that's why Tetsuya is like, or Tsutsui. What was his name again?
Tsutsumi.
Yeah, Tsutsumi. I want to keep calling him Tetsuya, and I don't know why. That's why he's so protective of that. He knew that. Actually, do we know if he knows that that was the daughter or the reincarnation from that period? I can't even remember that part.
I think he learns it here, and he's very, very shocked by it, as he should be.
Yes. Now, what I don't like, they have this spin about the reincarnation, but why does it have to be us, the player?
For meta reasons. I really think that's it.
I mean, yeah, it could be is that simple. I feel like it works with the characters in the story. I don't know if I like it from a quote unquote meta sort of way.
Yeah, it's going to be divisive as to whether this lands or not. If you're listening this far, I'm sure you've played it, or maybe you just really like the show and you don't mind being spoiled. I don't know, man. I think this is a little bit too silly, like verging towards silly, like absurd, verging towards silly. I will say I do like how it recontextualizes like throughout the game whenever you get to directly influence what's happening and the characters are like, what? Why am I thinking that? And then they're just like, well, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but maybe I'll just do that. I like that.
Yeah, that's a nice little bow to that piece of it. But I feel like the other reveals of who the serial killer is, who's the daughter, some of people's motivations to do things, I feel like that is a stronger reveal than this.
Oh, totally. This is like, it's just such a bizarre turn of events. to say that you are the reincarnation of this onmyoji. It's also just kind of a silly concept, to think that me in my boxers in Pennsylvania, some fat ass bald guy is the reincarnation of an ancient Japanese onmyoji. Come on, man. I'm being a little bit facetious here, and I'm being a little bit silly for comedy. That's comedy, baby. But I don't know. It verges on being silly. But this might be the reason, though. Like, I'm not poo-pooing this. This might be the reason somebody loves this game. This might have put the bow on the whole thing for somebody out there.
Oh, like when we were talking about if you've seen this a handful of times, it can wow you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if this is the first time you've seen that, maybe it would work. And I don't disparage that. I mean, conceptually, it's an interesting choice, and I kind of see why they would want to go that route. I feel like it undermines some of the game itself, or some of the reveals at least.
I agree. One thing that we didn't mention in the background of all of this, there was an adversary of Seimin. So there's this whole Honjo incident that we talked about. And what it is it ties together these 7 stories, or these 9 stories, 10 stories, however many in the 7 mysteries. You'd think 7. Just kidding. Tetsuya Nomura was here. I can smell him. But it ties together all of the origin stories of those into one big story centered around this onmyoji and one of his ops at the time, like one of his nemesis. And that nemesis is reborn as Yoko, the girl from the beginning. Which is why I was thinking, like, maybe when Yoko's saying all this batshit stupid stuff about spirits, she's trying to get Shogo to turn around and leave because she knows that he's the reincarnation. And she's like, well, I'm going to kill him before he kills me. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I think maybe.
Yeah. I wonder why they didn't choose. I mean, maybe it's too obvious that the serial killer was that reincarnation, but I guess it kind of makes more sense. That's too simple, right?
Wait, who is the serial killer a reincarnation of?
Like, if they went that route, like if this adversary, like that would make sense in my head, but maybe that's too simple. So having it be this bubbly, just girl that you just met, the meet cute girl, you know what? Maybe that's why the desires are so strong, too, in the beginning of, this shoujo just like, I'm just going to kill everybody because of all this reincarnation, blah, blah, blah.
It's possible. It's also possible too, like, the quote unquote canon timeline is when you save Yoko, but if you let her die, which, well, actually, no, that's not even right. Oh my God. These freaking time travel stories always break my brain down. Because what happens here, is you realize that you had to have killed Yoko. Like, after you answer all of the narrator's questions, he's like, good, you understand the story. I'll let you play again. Like, Jesus, man. You go back to Shogo. Shogo remembers everything. He's like, oh my God, like, it had to happen this way. And the ending then is kind of anticlimactic. The ending then goes through the other 6 protagonists, each of the 3 routes. And basically nothing happens. Like, Haruwe, like, it opens with Haruwe. Richter's like, ma'am, are you okay? And she's like, oh, I just had the weirdest dream. And, they just talk about finding what happened to their son. Tsutsumi and Ario just kind of keep on going with the police. It's kind of just an all's well that ends well kind of ending.
So then I guess that answers our previous question. He does survive then, because he never has that encounter with his adopted daughter, right?
Yes. Yes. What I meant to ask before was like the other ending that's not this one. The final ending that's not this one. Yeah.
Not the true ending. I don't know which one you consider the true ending.
What I was really asking was, did he survive the curse beatdown? That's what I couldn't remember.
He didn't die right away, though.
Right. Well, right. Yeah, that's... I didn't like that either. Like, they've shown these curses to be extraordinarily deadly, and it just so happens he survives because we have to get the I love you scene. I don't know, man.
Do you think... maybe it's because, it wasn't a lie, technically?
Well, no, because
technically it was a lie.
His stone is lying. Her stone, Tono's stone, Ayame Tono's, was anybody that tries to deceive her. Like, they pull that semantic mix up there. So, like, if you try to, like, misdirect her with something, she can fuck you up. Which I guess technically he did.
Technically.
This whole game
Maybe.
is a series of like, well, technically this is true.
That's a good point, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's Paranormasight. It sounds like, I'm surprised that you kind of are so lukewarm on the ending. I kind of thought that you would have loved it.
I like the true ending just doesn't do enough for me, where when I like the true ending of most visual novels where it's either really emotionally impactful or like I just want to go and cry type of thing. Like I want it to either have a really cool twist and it's going to make me think. I don't think about this ending. I think about the previous ending a little bit more. And I like the whole reincarnation aspect, but I don't like this spot. That's why.
And I'm curious, would you flat out recommend this to anybody? Or like, do you think this is, I mean, you said at the top, you think this is a good intro visual novel, right?
Yeah, honestly, I still, even with my qualms with it, I really like this game. I think it's, again, I want more people to play it too. Maybe they'll make a sequel or a sequel-like game, and hopefully they'll learn some of the kinks. And again, it's shorter for a visual novel. I mean, I think it took me 7 hours to get to the first ending, and then it took me just under 14 hours to find the true ending. So, I mean, in that aspect, I think I'd recommend it to most people.
Yeah, it's not long. It goes down pretty easy. Some of the chapters are a little longer than what I would have liked, but I mean, you can save it literally any time. It's pretty forgiving in that way.
And I think what I really like about it too, I think you mentioned too, is just the character makeup. I think they're fun, and a lot of visual novels I feel like have too over-the-top characters or just ones that are kind of too flat. And I think each of these characters, one, they are kind of a little bit typecasted here and there, but I feel like they have just a little bit more going on. Not always the best, though.
Yeah.
With some motivations, but I feel like it's a strong cast of characters. There's some high moments, and it's clever, where I'm just like, yeah, I like it.
Right. This isn't a visual novel where you've got the tsundere, you've got the little sister archetype, you've got the tomboy.
Yeah.
Those are the visual novels I read later on, after the lights go out. That's grandpa time. You remember, that's like, they used to do that on like Hey Arnold and Rugrats, where like Grandpa Lou would bring out lonely space fictions, and he'd be like, oh, that's for when you sprouts go to bed.
Yeah.
Fucking love it. Yeah.
And I love those style of visual novels too, but
Yeah.
I feel like this one can be a little bit more broad. Again, doesn't have that typical anime art style. I feel like this game has a lot of things going for it. It just didn't all come together.
Totally. Yeah. Whether or not the landing is sticked is a your mileage may vary kind of deal. The things that it does well, the likable characters, the art style, the music, the environments, it does that well. And if that keeps you around to the end, whether or not you like the crazy meta stuff and the story that takes so many twists and turns that it starts to get a little bit overstimulating, your mileage may vary. But if you come for the stuff you like and see it out, you might have a good time. I agree. I recommend this. It's a good time. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it's no crazy, twistful Steins Gate-like visual novel like you have to play this, but honestly, I think you'll have a good time with it.
Yep, here. So, that's Paranormasight. I got to thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on. First time, hopefully not the last time. I mean, it depends on if you think if you had a good time. But you're always welcome.
I had a great time.
Yeah, man. Always welcome back. And speaking of, we talked a little bit about Paranormasight on your show before, as well as some other visual novels we like. Your show, Bits of Time. Now, I did not get a chance to speak with your co-host, Larry, but I did, Matt, our mutual friend Matt was there, and we talked visual novels. So, Bits of Time. Do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about what Bits of Time is and recommend any episodes as a good first introduction to them?
Sure, and I want to say, yes, I will come on your show again. Absolutely. The one thing with Larry doesn't always love visual novels or longer RPGs, and I don't have a lot of places to talk about that, my YouTube channel, but so I love this kind of stuff, the deep dive stuff. And plus, just talking about moments is so much fun to me. So, yep, I do co-host Bits of Time with my older brother, Larry. Our goal was kind of to make it like you're dropping into a conversation about a game, and I think we've gotten there. If you want some episode recommendations I think you would like, listener of The Rick, I would do
that
13
is the show's
Sentinels.
name, yes.
Yeah. I know. I was trying to pick up a clever way to wrap it into it. I just couldn't. Your name's right there. So our 13 Sentinels episode that we did quite a while ago, and our To the Moon episode, the ending of To the Moon episode kind of became a therapy session for us. It was great. We also do a YouTube channel, which just crossed 3,200 subscribers, which is a lot of fun. And since you like going into deep and story stuff, I did a retrospective on Breath of Fire 4 for the PlayStation 1, and that was a lot of fun to do. It took me way too long to make, but I've had a lot of fun with those. I also have done Legend of Dragoon and Ys 8, and I have a couple more in the pipeline.
Oh yeah, big fan of Legend of Dragoon. Breath of Fire is on my list for hopefully this coming year to go through all of those.
Oh, all of them? Wow.
I mean, the first four anyway. I don't know if there's more than that.
There's a fifth one and a sixth one, but we don't talk about the sixth one. Sixth one's just mobile. Fifth one is very different from the rest of the series.
Okay.
What I do like about our Bits of Time is the podcast and the YouTube are basically like 95% different. It's a lot more work, but we try to do something different.
Yeah, very cool. I definitely recommend checking out. I'm not as familiar with your YouTube presence, but I can definitely recommend the podcast. It's a good time. 13 Sentinels is great, so is To the Moon. You can check out their podcast. You can find the links to that in the description. That's going to be in Michael's campsite .bio link. You can also find Michael's books that he's written in there. A book called Isla and The Consumed.
Please do. Working on other stuff right now.
A couple of links. You can check those out and buy them if you're so inclined. But once again, thank you, Michael, for stopping by. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for sticking around through this episode of The Rick, otherwise known as pixelprojectradio. That's the sub-name of this podcast. I took the name of the show as the host. I am The Rick. And
you are.
Thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoy the show. We'll see you next time. We're signing off for now. Take care.